reading from the Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, O God.
Lifting his eyes to heaven, Jesus prayed, saying, Holy Father, I pray not only for them, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, so that they may be one, as you, Father, are in me and I in you, so that they may also be in us, that the world may believe that you sent me. And I have given them the glory you gave me, that they may be brought to perfection as one, that the world may know that you sent me, and that you loved them, even as you loved me. Father, they are your gift to me. I wish that where I am, they may also be with me, that they may see my glory that you gave me because you loved me before the foundation of the world. Righteous Father, the world does not know you, but I know you, and they know that you sent me. I made known to them your name, and I will make it known that the love which you have loved me may be in them, and I in them. Amen. These are the words of our brother Jesus. Glory to you.
Glory to you.
Have a seat. I have shared with some of you this weird phenomenon that I've been experiencing over the past few months, where I imagine people in my house after I'm gone. That is, after I have died. It's as if I can see them poring over my things, taking what they want and giving to others what others want. Perhaps it's a giant garage sale on my driveway. Things going for $1 here and $1 there. They share memories and they talk about me, their experiences with me, for better or for worse. Perhaps this is because, my brothers and I did this when my mom was passing. But it feels very real to me. It isn't a bad feeling necessarily, just a real sense that when I take my last breath, the world will continue. It will keep going, just as it kept going when Jesus ascended. I mention this because I've experienced something similar in reading through our scriptures for Eastertide, the 50 days in our liturgical calendar that celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. If you'll note, we've had no Old Testament readings, but we go from the Acts of the Apostles, which describe the movement within the early church, to John of Patmos, who envisions Christ's return, to Jesus, who in this gospel reading is back in the Garden of Gethsemane prior to his arrest. And in the reading for the Solemnity of the Ascension celebrated on this Sunday, we see how the apostles were with him, and he was teaching them. And then suddenly Jesus was lifted up, and a cloud took him from their sight. So we slide back and forth between tenses as if we have the eye of the eternal God, the Alpha and the Omega, beginning and end, able to defy time and space. Jesus, who is still present, the absence of Jesus, and the hope of Jesus' return. And so we get this beautiful ability in today's gospel to hear the hopes of Jesus for the friends he was leaving behind, and how those hopes played out in the events that unfolded after he left, including the stoning of Stephen, the church's first martyr. There isn't much mentioned about Stephen in the scriptures. Stephen, who was, as you know, stoned to death. And in a twisted irony, Stephen is also our patron saint of bricklayers and stonemasons. You can't make that stuff up. Stephen was one of the Greek-speaking Hellenistic Jews in the community of Jesus followers in Jerusalem. He was a deacon and selected to administer the daily charitable distribution of food to the Greek-speaking widows in their community. In this story, Stephen seems to be a little short on social cueing. When you back up to the beginning of chapter 7 in the book of Acts, you'll find Stephen preaching quite a message to the crowd gathered, challenging the Sanhedrin and giving them his version of their Jewish history. Starting with Father Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, Pharaoh, floods, famine, Egypt, and Moses, and Aaron, Joshua, and David. The stone tablets, the covenant, and the tabernacle. You can just see these high priests rolling their eyes. Will he ever shut up? Who is he to teach us? And then Stephen took an unexpected turn in his homily to the high priests and scribes. He challenged their practice of worship in the temple, saying, "The Most High does not live in houses made by men." Well, that didn't go over well with these men who take their positions in the temple quite seriously. Citing the prophets, Stephen reminded them that God says, "Heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. What kind of house will you build for me? Or where will my resting place be? Has not my hand made all these things?" And as if it wasn't enough, he called the Sanhedrin stiff-necked people and accused them of betraying and murdering the righteous one. You can almost imagine a hook appearing from stage right with the other apostles cringing, and Jesus watching from heaven saying, "Easy there, Stephen." But Jesus wasn't there to cool down the angry mob. He wasn't able to scratch in the sand this time, or to deflect their attention by bringing up a topic that spoke to their hearts. Instead, the angry mob dragged Stephen to the edge of their town and stoned him to death. At the scene of the stoning of Stephen was a Pharisee by the name of Saul. And as witnesses were getting involved in the brawl, they laid their cloaks down at the feet of Saul. It was sort of like when you take off your sweatshirt and dump it on the ground next to a friend when you're playing a pickup game at a public park. You don't want someone wandering off with your clothes, but this gesture also indicated that Saul was supervising the event and giving his consent to the murder of Stephen. Stephen's final words were similar to those of Jesus on the cross. "Lord, receive my spirit." And then he fell to his knees and cried out in a loud voice, "Lord, do not hold this sin against them." And then he died. Saul, as you know, later became the Apostle Paul, and so you can see why he wasn't always well received by members of the early church. Why he and Barnabas were tossed out of town and had to wipe the dust off their feet. Jesus, in his last hour before he was crucified, prayed for his apostles and for those who would believe in him through their efforts, which includes Saul and includes us, you and me. He longed for Saul to be transformed into Paul, and for Paul to be forgiven and welcomed into the community of believers. He longed for us to be united with one another and with God, just as he was one with God. He asked that we would share in that oneness and in the glory of Christ, Christ's splendor and beauty. As one writer put it, Christ desired that we, like him, would shine in wisdom, love, creativity, and beauty, strength and compassion, all the things that made Jesus weighty and wonderful. And so we have to wonder what it was like for Jesus to see Saul giving the nod to the execution of Stephen, this young deacon in the early church. Having left this world, there was so much riding on what those early believers would do that would decide if the movement of Jesus' followers would continue or would fade away. What would happen to this movement following the ascension? What would happen after they lost their leader in the void left by Jesus? German sociologist Max Weber defined a charismatic leader as one who is treated as a leader because of his perceived supernatural, superhuman, or at least specifically exceptional powers or qualities that are not accessible to the ordinary person. That certainly sounds like Jesus, doesn't it? Jesus, the root and offspring of David, grounded in his humanity, and the bright morning star reflecting his divine nature. In an interview titled How to Sustain a Culture When a Charismatic Leader Leaves, Dr. Liz Stanley says cultural change often needs a very charismatic leader to get it going. You need someone who not only has the vision of where they want to take the people, but also has the charisma needed to inspire and to engage others, to get them to follow. Charisma is important for getting a movement going, but no matter how charismatic they are, says Dr. Stanley, they could not possibly carry that cultural change on their own. Each organization that promotes cultural change needs to reach a tipping point where the momentum is unstoppable. Perhaps that tipping point in the early church was Pentecost. And no leader, she says, no matter how fantastic they are, can get to that tipping point on their own. They need a broad base of people following them. Leadership on its own is not enough for cultural change. You also have to work holistically and systematically across systems and symbols to make sure that they are aligned with the change that you are trying to create, hence Stephen's confrontation of the Sanhedrin. If those things are changed, then the system will survive when a charismatic leader leaves. Because it's not just one person's vision, it becomes a collective movement. Jesus knew this. It was why he told his apostles, truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater than me, because I am going to the Father. So as we are in the midst of a movement of resistance these days where we are called to stand with those who are being maligned and oppressed, let us remember Jesus' desire for us that the movement he began would continue. Father, I pray that they may be one as we are one, I and them, and you and me, that they may be brought to perfection as one, that the world may know that you sent me and that you loved them, even as you have loved me. How did it happen that those who saw Saul give the nod to the murder of Stephen were able to embrace him as one of their own? The true challenge of being one in the movement of Jesus. How will we respond to the expressed hopes of Jesus? How will we build bridges with those who have been on the other side of this current movement of resistance that we find ourselves in? What would that oneness look like? When I think about my children poring over my things when I am gone, I hope that they will find the box of photos from their childhood on the upper shelf of my bedroom closet. I want them to relive those stories of their youth, to remember that they were loved, to take that love and embrace each other. Jesus desires for his friends were no different, and he desires that for us. Will we do our part to keep the movement of Jesus alive? Poet Rafat Al-Arir from Gaza who founded a social movement called We Are Not Numbers, wrote, "If I must die, if I must die, you must live to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some string. Make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope. Let it be a tale." Amen.
Amen.